I've been using the Linux desktop for a little over 1 year, and here is my advice for beginners. Now, just a disclaimer, I'm not going to be giving out any advanced level Linux tips, and I'm still not a seasoned power user. I'll start off with my first piece of advice, and that is not to rely on AI. Reliance on AI is one of the worst things to do, especially when dealing with tech and command line related programs, whether it be Linux or learning how to program or even using Windows. I would highly recommend that you read the documentation and wiki of a certain distribution or application that you want to use. You can also check the many YouTube tutorials and even ask around in subreddits or Discord servers, but AI should only be a last resort because relying on AI will not help you learn and get used to Linux but hinder the process, and if the AI makes mistakes, it can mess up your system pretty badly. My second piece of advice is do not engage in distro wars. When you ask anyone online, especially Reddit, on what distribution to use, they will push their biases and you might get into a power user complicated distro. Instead, just go for something simple like Linux Mint, stick with it, and you can switch distributions later on when you're comfortable with Linux, or you can just stick with that distro forever. It's your choice. Checking compatibility before switching is really important, as some of the day-to-day games and hardware you use may not work on Linux. A lot of video games with kernel level anti-cheat don't support Linux, like Battlefield, Call of Duty, Apex Legends, and Fortnite. In that case, if you are planning on trying out Linux, a dual boot between Windows or your respective operating system would be the best choice. Also, hardware devices like certain soundboards, Wi-Fi cards, RGB software, and dedicated applications for your mouse and keyboard that change DPI and whatnot may not work on Linux. So I would again recommend dual booting or trying other open source alternatives to those applications if they exist. If not, I would also configure all my peripherals and hardware devices first on Windows to my desired settings, then boot over to Linux. Flatpak apps are great. They're easy to install through both the terminal and through GUI application stores. But since they come in sandboxed environments, some Flatpak apps may have missing features, or if they are gaming focused, have lower performance compared to their native counterparts. So if there are multiple ways to install a certain application, it's best to go for the native package manager or the app image. Proton is a compatibility layer made by Valve to run Windows games on Linux if the developer of the respective game supports it. The Proton compatibility layer should always be used instead of the legacy Wine when it comes to gaming, as Proton has less of a performance overhead and Wine is pretty outdated when it comes to things such as games. A good website to configure Proton launch flags and options would be ProtonDB, as it carries the database of Steam games and you can check whether a certain game on Linux runs and how well it does. AMD drivers are way more mature compared to NVIDIA on Linux, so if you're planning to build a new PC, I would always recommend going for an AMD graphics card if you're planning on running Linux. Unless you really need certain NVIDIA features like ray tracing performance, CUDA cores, and its sheer power when it comes to flagship cards like the RTX 5080 and 5090. Otherwise, if you're going for a mid-range or high-end but not exactly flagship GPU like the RX 9070 XT, go AMD instead. If these tips helped you out, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as I can only get videos out with the support from you all. And once again, thank you for watching.